What is going on? What's going on? What's going on? Welcome to the latest case of making the case for your lawyer dreams. I am so happy to have you guys here today. As our room begins to fill up, I want you guys to let us know where you're viewing our session from. And also, I want you guys to make sure and know that any questions that you may have about where you are in your lawyer journey, they could be pre-loaded. We created this space for you. Of course, I'm holding it down in St. Louis, Missouri. It's not the place where I want to be, y'all, but it's a place currently where God has me. So let us know where you're viewing our session from. Fill our chat box up and let us know where you're holding it down from. I know right now we're definitely in crunch time for people who are either one on wait list trying to get into law school or trying to hear back from law school. I know also a lot of people are also in the process of resetting to try to prepare for the next cycle. Each one of those situations, I know oftentimes the stress is on 10. And I know that you guys have to be incredibly worried, concerned, and scared, and unsure in regards to how to take that next particular step. Nevertheless, I want to be able to assure you that this dream is something that can happen and will happen. Does it mean it's going to be hard? You're damn right it's going to be hard. But nevertheless, one of the things I believe is that every step in your life, you've encountered a challenge. And the purpose of that step was to help you evolve and grow. And so you know what? This is no different. This is no different. You remember those challenges that you had in the past in your life where you thought the world was going to end, where you thought everything was going to be over and you thought that nothing was going to come of it. But you know what? That challenge has now become an afterthought. And it's now something that you are now moved on from and evolved from. And now it's about getting ready for that next particular step. So when you find yourself getting discouraged, when you find yourself getting down about that current challenge that you're going through, really go back in history and realize that, you know what, fam? I have overcome challenges in the past. And you know what? This is going to be no different. So lean in and lock in on that. This is a process, you guys, where all we're really doing is growing. We're evolving and growing and taking the next step. And this is just the next step in your evolution. Everybody on their lawyer journey has had to face challenges, has had to evolve, has had to make some type of shift or pivot in order to take the next step in their journey. And you know what, fam? You are next in this journey. We all have to grow and evolve. And so I want you guys to really lean in on yourself and realize that it's something that can and will happen. Understand that the changes that you have to make, it's not an indictment on your intelligence or in your ability to be successful. It actually just means that it's time to grow. And you know what? You've grown before. And you know what? I kind of believe that you have what it takes to grow now. So lean into this process and understand that you are capable, okay? And so I know I'm very excited about it. We've been very fortunate, you guys, to have a lot of amazing guests come on our show to share their stories, to share their challenges, to provide you guys with the blueprint of what you need to do to take the next step in your journey. And it is my hope that if, in fact, you've missed any of our past episodes, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel at Becoming JD and catch all 77 episodes and find a story that you identify with. Been dismissed? We have a story about a student who's been dismissed who's now practicing law. Struggling with the LSAT? Been on the struggle bus? Guess what? We have guests who've shared their stories after overcoming their struggles with the LSAT. Struggling with law school? We've had guests who are almost dismissed from law school who have come on now and are now doing great things. So whatever struggle that you're currently going through, you guys, whatever it is, understand that you are not the first person to encounter that struggle. So you know what that means, Danielle? That means that there's a blueprint out there for you guys to be able to follow in order to model and follow, ensure that you're also being able to duplicate the same success. So lean in on that process. I know right now that people are waiting to hear back from law schools. And I know in that process, when you're waiting to hear back from law school, you can find yourself being very anxious, being very scared. But understand, oftentimes what I learned in this process, you guys, is the best way to find yourself in the law school is to pull up. I tell people that in this space, if you want to be a lawyer, you cannot move or operate in fear. Fear is something that's going to hinder you from being able to maximize your potential and your ability to be successful. Understand this, fam. So many of my students have been able to get into law school by simply, calling the phone. Erykah Badu told us to call Tyrone. So I'm telling you guys to call law schools, okay? because it could provide a unique opportunity for you guys to be able to go from waitlisted or being ghosted by law schools to finding yourself securing what you need to get accepted. And so I want you guys to not move in fear, but move with purpose. I know several of my students who've been waiting to hear from law schools have been able to get clarity, purpose in mind in regards to what to do by simply calling law schools, or more or less pulling up to those law schools to get the answers that they need. So do not operate in fear. Understand this, fam. There's somebody out there that has the same dream as you. The questions you have to ask yourself is, what are you going to do to set yourself apart? What are you going to do to make the law school choose you over somebody else? Right now, you guys, it's all about actions. It's all about moving with purpose. It's not really about LSAT scores anymore. It's about showing law schools who wants it more. So I see that we have our guest here. Let's go ahead and get him on. And we apologize. And we're going to continue to persevere anyway, because that really is the model that we have to follow if, in fact, we want to become a lawyer. We have to understand that this is something that we want. We have to navigate our space. What's going on, man? How's it going, brother?
How you doing, brother? Doing good,
Oh,
man.
oh, man, I'm blessed. I'm blessed. I got the game on in the background. My Pacers are losing. But you know what? I got to wait for the last 2 seconds in the fourth quarter, and maybe we'll win it at that
Right.
particular point.
That's how it works.
But nevertheless, man, I'm so excited to have you here. I've actually been following you from afar for a minute. I remember when I was going through my challenges of becoming a lawyer and trying to figure out how to navigate this space. I really leaned on your page, the source of inspiration, to see that the blueprint that you followed. Because I think oftentimes when people think about becoming a lawyer, we have this box where we think of what we're supposed to do. And fam, you completely shattered that damn box and made your own blueprint. And I really am happy to have the opportunity to have you here. And I want you to go ahead and let people know who you are, what you're doing, and man, we're gonna get into some stuff.
Yeah. So, my path to being a lawyer was kind of unconventional because my path kind of pivoted. So, my background's in finance. I worked as a financial advisor, worked as a private client banker, worked in a family office, and at one point in time, decided, I kind of want to push this higher. I want to see if I can
Right.
go higher than the financial advisor career would take me. And so ended up going to law school at around 24 and went to law school, did my first year. I was working full time while in law school. So it was
Wow.
crazy. I was literally working as a private banker in downtown LA, going to school in Orange County. And so I'll get off work, go to classes on like the 2 or 3 days that I had classes, and then I'll spend the entire weekend studying. So Saturday and Sunday I was just in the library, in the lab the whole time. Um, Studying at nighttime after class, studying on the days I didn't have class, I was studying. And that first year of law school was tough. They tell you not to work for a reason. And I was like, man, I'm going to be the exception to the rule. It's going to work out for me. And that first semester, I got put on academic probation.
Wow.
And then that second semester, I was like, they're like, if you don't get it together now, you're not going to be able to come back. You're going to be on, I guess they call it academic withdrawal.
Mm-hmm.
And so the grades started flying in, and I was like, it's not looking good for me. That second semester grades started coming in. I was like, it's not looking good for me. That last contract grade came in, and it gave me the GPA to stay in. I had like a .01 over what I needed to stay in.
Oh, wow.
And so during that time, I actually lost my scholarship. So the scholarship applied for the first semester, but it didn't carry over to the second semester. So then I had law school debt, and I couldn't register for my second year of law school because of the law school debt. And so what I ended up doing was just taking a year off of school so that then I can get the money to pay off the debts to get back in school. And also get me to kind of sit down and rethink law school and figure out how to succeed in law school. So I took that year off. I worked in a workers' compensation firm as a law clerk where I was just doing research and writing because I needed to hone in my writing skills. And I was trading stocks at the same time. So I was extra frugal. I moved to a super cheap apartment. It was like $600 a month, and that allowed me to save money, still work, and then I was just studying. So I was reading all the cases I would need to know for when I went back to law school, like all my con law stuff, um, all those different kind of cases. And so like by the time the second year rolled around, I had already read all the cases for the second year. And then not only that, I also was trading stocks. And so this is when Tesla wasn't even $100 stock. I was investing in Tesla. The Tesla stock exploded overnight, became a $100 stock, and that gave me the money to get back into law school. So paid off that debt, registered for classes, took that gap year in between my first and second year, came back, made the dean's list. So after that, it was kind of like up from there in law school. Like I figured out the code because I was reading a bunch of books on how to succeed in law school. I wasn't just reading what they were giving me.
Right.
I went to the library and I was just cranking out like, I need to figure this out. I need to figure out the IRAC. I need to figure out analysis. I need to figure out rule statements. I need to figure out all that stuff. Figure out outlining because they explain it to you in abstract terms. But a lot of times, like if you're first gen law school, you're just figuring it all out on your own.
Yeah.
And it can be tough because they're grading you as though you should already know this stuff. So it definitely was a journey to get to these things.
And I think, again, for you guys who are just joining us, we're joined by attorney Charles Oglesby. My man here is gold. Seriously. I want to make sure that you guys people have is they just want to continue to go. They don't take a moment to be able to sit back and assess to see what can I do differently? What are some of the changes I have to make? And I think oftentimes that's where people go wrong, where they're taking the LSAT multiple times, or even if they do find themselves on academic probation, they're really just thinking that the solution is I'm just going to study longer. And nevertheless, that oftentimes be one of the biggest struggles. But also one of the things I think that really pushes us, bro, is just like, you have to want this. This has to be something that you want. I jokingly tell people, and I made a post about it earlier I think last week. I said, man, you can go on OnlyFans and make a whole bunch of money. You're choosing to study the LSAT. You're choosing to study the bar. You're choosing to do something that there's going to be a long time wait before there's going to be a payoff. So it has to be something that you want. And so I ask everybody this question. It kind of has some brown sugar vibes, but you'll feel what I'm saying is this. When did you fall in love with law? Because clearly, bro, it was definitely a love. Otherwise, you definitely been like deuces, man. I got Telsa, I'm good.
Man, I would think it was probably like the year or two before law school. I started watching a bunch of like law related content, reading a bunch of law books like Robert Grisham, watching a lot of those like legal TV shows. And what's interesting is like before college, I didn't really even factor in the idea of becoming a lawyer. But then after I got out of college, I started looking at the requirements to go to law school. I was like, I could do this. I could do this. And so I think that when I realized like this is my career, but I can take it to another level, that's when I was like, all right, let's do this. Let's lock in. Like I want to max out at one of those careers that's doctor, lawyer, engineer, even just doctor, lawyer.
Yeah.
Like I want to be there. So I was like, let's push to the limit. Like that's what I want to get to.
And I think that's the crazy thing. I think for so many people out there is we were kind of raised as, okay, these are your three pathways to success, right? Doctor, lawyer, engineer. And that's one of the pathways that you're going to end up choosing in order to be successful. But oftentimes one of the things, I think one of the biggest barriers, bro, is when we think about a lawyer, we don't think about somebody who looks like us. And because of that, and so our vision of success oftentimes is not someone who looks like us. And I think oftentimes that's one of the biggest challenges. I want you to tell me, bro, when did you realize what happened for you? When you realize, man, I could do this shit. Like, I could do this. Like, this is something that I could do. Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, it's going to be some late nights, but I could do this. When was that situation like where you realized that?
I think it was after taking that year off and then just studying the whole time, briefing on my cases, and then coming back and hitting the dean's list. When I did that, I was like, okay, we cracked the code. We cracked the code. Because I mean, law school first year, depending on what kind of school you go to, that curve is going to be tough. So I went to Western State, which isn't a highly ranked law school, and so what happens with that is they curve it really hard
Wow.
because they're. This is my theory. This is what my theory is, and there have been some documents that have filed that kind of confirm that belief. But it started off with like 200 law students, and about 50 of us graduated.
Wow.
And so what
Really,
happened to
that's a
the
lot.
other 150? They got curved out. And they tried to curve me out, but I was like, you're not gonna curve me out, man. And so I think that it can be kind of tough that first year because yeah, you're learning, but you're also kind of in competition. And so what I've done after seeing how like the situation kind of plays out at the particular law schools, whenever I saw a brother come in, I would always kind of pull him to the side and I would tell him like, hey man, like this is what you need to do. I know they're gonna tell you this, but this is what you need to do. This is the outline for every single class you're gonna take. I need you to write some exams for me so we can work on those rule statements, we can work on your analysis, we can make sure you're hitting all those points. And the brothers that I was able to work with have all done really well. And so I thought that like that's kind of like the responsibility that we have is like you go into these situations and like it can be stacked against us because you're going against people like the people who did well in my school, people who their dad was an attorney, their brother was an attorney. It's no wonder they're doing so well because they've cracked the code. They see through what they're telling you.
Right.
You go into class, they read all these cases, you brief all these cases, and then they want to know the rule statement. And so depending on what kind of school you go to, they might not hand you that rule statement. You might have to find that rule statement.
And I think also one of the things that's amazing, and for you guys again who's just joining us, we're here live in full effect with Attorney Charles Oglesby. Make sure you guys follow him. He is doing a lot of great things for the community, and also he's doing a lot of things to show a different pathway to becoming a lawyer. Now, oftentimes people think, when we think about law, we think about becoming a lawyer, we think about law. Now, tell me, how did you go about merging your passion for finance with law? Because I think a lot of people don't understand how much of an overlap it is and how much it can impact their lives positively.
I would say that that is actually kind of like a misconception because those two parts of my life are
Oh,
separate.
okay.
Um, I merged business and
Okay.
law because I'm always thinking of the business of law. I'm not just thinking the practice of law. And so I'm thinking build your own firm. How are you going to put your own systems in place? That kind of stuff. But for me, they're two separate entities. And so, like, I'm in the process of starting my own firm called Ontario Injury. You can find it on the Instagram as ontario.injury, but then I also have a company called Tide Capital, and that's Tide.capital. And so that is a completely different function of everything that I'm doing. They kind of exist on their own. Um, I would say that the area of law that I work in, and there's people who work in corporate law, they work in transactional law, they do that kind of stuff. But I actually work in personal injury law. And so I started working in personal injury in 2019 after working in a few different types of law. I worked in employment law before, I worked in workers' compensation law, and I've also done some business and real estate law. And I just liked PI because it gave you access to the ongoing litigation, the ongoing, like, which really feels like practicing law,
Yeah.
going to court, arguing motions, drafting documents. Like, that's to me what felt like the practice of law. And so I have an interesting situation because I, in 2019, was working as a law clerk. And then I took some time off and then I was building my own business. And then I came back, I was working as a paralegal, and then I became a provisionally licensed attorney. And then after being a provisionally licensed attorney, then I became fully licensed. And so I've kind of like just maneuvered my way to get to that place. It's not the obvious, most common, most typical way of becoming an attorney that a lot of people know and a lot of people see. And so a lot of people always ask me like, oh, like, did you do this? It's like, it's a little bit different because there's been some movement in California with how they've changed the bar pass score, how they are changing grading, all that stuff. And so it just kind of opened itself up to me.
And so one thing I would love, because I think oftentimes, like you said, people are only familiar with one pathway. So you can go and elaborate to them, talking about a little bit about how California, which I believe is ahead of the curve when it comes to the bar and opening up opportunities. Tell them about how that process goes and what they have to do to be able to follow your same pathway.
Yeah, that's a good question. So when I graduated in law school, which was in 2016, I took the bar. I didn't pass the bar. Then I took it again, didn't pass it. Took it again, didn't pass it. And so I started focusing on other stuff.
Yeah.
And then I want to say about 2 or 3 years ago, I got an email and they were talking about how they were going to be arguing to reduce the bar pass number score or grade. In California was 1440, they reduced it to 1390. And so then what they did is they said, hey, because we reduce the bar score from 1440 to 1390. We're going to look at all these people who took the bar during the years that we factored in, which is 2015 to 2020. And if they scored over a 1390, we're going to deem them as past the bar. And so I submitted the scores, and they're like, all right, well, you qualify. And so a part of that qualification was you send all the documents, and then for a year, you practice as what's a provisionally licensed attorney. So they give you a PL number, and then from there, you can appear in court, you can take depots, defend depots, you can sign docs, you can advise clients, you can negotiate settlements, you can do basically everything. And so did that for a year, submitted everything. You had to get reviews by managing attorneys. You have to be managed by an attorney the entire time. And then they authorized it, gave me a bar number, and we're off and running. And I would say that that year was very beneficial because you get to do things and you get to kind of learn without like hopping right into it. A lot of people pass the bar, become licensed. Whereas this is kind of like a residency per se. When you become a doctor, you get a residency. And so when I was licensed, I was light years ahead of people who just literally just passed the bar, started practicing. People have been practicing for 2-3 years. Like I'm light years ahead of them because I've done all the work.
Right.
And so I've done the law clerk work. I've done the paralegal work. I've done the provisionally licensed work. And so I have like 5 years experience in practice. And now I'm just leaning on people with that 5 years experience where you have people who just hopped right into it and their parents propped them up, put them in position to never have to work until they became an attorney, and they're clueless.
That part,
They might not be clueless
I
5 years from now, but they weren't hitting the ground running like we are.
And I think the thing that's so amazing about your story, 'cause I remember following it from afar, is it's just like oftentimes when things happen in life, you have a choice. You could make a way, or you could just admired about you from afar is that you've been constantly evolving, constantly adding to your rapport in regards to the things that you're doing, have being able to find ways to do entrepreneurship, do finance, wealth management, do real estate. And I was like, man, he's just everywhere. And it's just like, that's what I want to do. And so I want you to be able to tell people about, like, in regards to, like, right now, I tell people, there's people going through challenges right now. And I opened up the show talking about that. How, like, you know, on this lawyer journey, man, there are highs, but man, it's a whole lot of lows. And during those lows, it's like where you're left to yourself. I mean, you got family, cousin, kinfolk who, of course, love and support you. But when you're left to yourself, oftentimes having to make that choice, am I going to keep going or if I'm going to quit? And I want you to tell somebody out there who may be struggling with the bar, who may be struggling with the LSAT, may be in probation. I want you to give them some words of encouragement. What are some of the things that you use to keep going? Because I think there's somebody out there that needs to hear those words too.
Man,
That's
tough.
deep. We going to church, right?
I would say, man, you got to lock into what you want. You got to lock into that vision. I've always been somebody who's had a vision for what I want in life. And I think that that is kind of what helps you focus and know that what you're going through isn't your destiny. What you're going through is just a stepping stone to your destiny. That's the first thing I would say. The other is you got to know who you're doing it for too. So you got to find that why. You got to tap into the people that you love, that you want to be able to provide a good life for. And so like there's things I'm stepping into now that was the reason why I did all that, to make sure my son can go to X school, to make sure I could take the trips we want to take, drive the cars that we drive, live in the house that we live in, that kind of stuff. Like that was the reason why I did it, and I always locked in and focused on that. And also, I think that there's honor in the pursuit. So a lot of people are going to kind of give you your due just because you're doing those things anyway. It's not going to be pretty because the goal is to be licensed, but just the fact that you're in the lab studying to take the bar, taking the bar, in law school, there's honor just in those pursuits. We could be doing a whole lot of other stuff. So you might not be where you are, but there's still kind of some status in just the pursuit of where you want to be. So I think that's important. And then also, I think that one of the things that I tapped into in building my business after law school was just like realizing that the fact that I even made it to the other side of law school was like it said that I'm about something.
Yeah.
And so it's like, let me put that into business. Let me put that into the things that I'm doing, because like I wouldn't have made it if I wasn't like a dog. And you got to kind of be a dog. And so, I mean, that's the things that I would say. Just staying focused, because I've worked, like somebody asked earlier, they said, did you stop working when you were in law school? And like, yes, I did, but I took on a part-time job. So what I did is I didn't work full-time, but I worked part-time. And I also moved back home with my parents. And so I moved back home with my parents. I slept on the couch. I slept on a little futon, and I worked a part-time job at a restaurant with a degree in finance, because I needed a job that didn't require me to think much. I could just show up, get paid, pay my car note, pay for some food, that kind of stuff. And so I could work. And so it wasn't fun. It wasn't fun.
Right.
It wasn't sexy. I didn't tell people a lot about the grind that I was doing, because I didn't want to have to tell people like, yeah, I'm working at a restaurant. Yeah, I'm working blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I'm doing this. But now we can look back at that and say, like, I was willing to do those things to get to where I want to go. And my son won't have to do those things. We're going to make sure that he's set up. Right? No, hold on, wait, you're going to knock over the thing. Here. All right. You want to say hi to the people? Hi. Say hi. I'm Nolan. So yeah, that's kind of. I mean, it's not pretty. It's not sexy, man. It's a lot of people don't want to hear it or talk about it. But if you look at a lot of people's stories, like it wasn't pretty or sexy, but they still showed up and made it happen.
Right. And I think that's the amazing thing is oftentimes I tell people the blessing and the curse with social media is oftentimes people see the final results, but they have no clue how you got there. And so they oftentimes have these presumptions that there was a red carpet pathway, but it definitely was not. And I remember I had a question where I was talking to some students at Penn State last week. I had one student to talk about, well, am I going to be able to have a social life when I'm in law school? And I told her, so I was like, fam, when you're in law school is stingy. It's going to take all your time. And it does not care. It don't care if you got kids. It don't care if your mama's sick. It don't care about none of that. And if you are not able to 100% lock in on that, then it's going to be your downfall. And I think the amazing thing about why we've been able to be so fortunate to have this show is for people to be able to see you guys as real stories about really believing in yourself, even during those tough times, the point where you were able to manifest where you are now. And I think that's something that's awesome. Now, of course, one of the things that I also want to give you an opportunity is talk about some of the other entrepreneurial ventures that you went and explored. Because I think oftentimes, even though I tell people being a lawyer is a gateway for you to do other things. And you don't just have to be in this box. Literally, I was talking earlier today to somebody about being in a box. And oftentimes, there's so many more other things that you can be able to do. And one of the things I loved about you were like a testament to me in regards, okay, these are my goals. To be able to step outside of the box and not just be defined as a lawyer.
Yeah. So I mean, I see that you're doing that right now with your company, which is really cool. I think that we have these degrees, and these degrees can either serve us to get jobs, they can serve us to start a business and build a job.
Right.
And so I got a law degree, but I also had a degree in finance, which gives me the ability to creatively find opportunities in the world of finance that aren't just the obvious things. And so when I first started my career, I was working as a financial advisor, and I realized that my community doesn't, from the face of it, have the resources to do the things that I need to be able to get them to do if I'm going to have a successful career as a financial
Right.
advisor. And so I started doing different things that would provide a gateway to my people that were a mirror of kind of like a financial advising kind of platform. So essentially, like, instead of like when you are a financial advisor, you have products that are geared towards the wealthy. I need to create financial products that are geared towards my people. So that's information, that's investing at a small scale, at a smaller scale, that's investing collectively, that's free content in terms of blogs, uh, podcasts, um, social media content, that kind of stuff. And so I created a podcast, and the podcast was just aimed at educating and exposing African American people to successful business owners and investors. We have over 300 episodes, and it's done really well. And then we were like, all right, well, what else can we do? And so we started working, and we started investing in stocks together. We started investing in real estate together. I was like, all right, what else can we do? And so we started creating information and courses to educate people, because I realized it's actually easier to teach people than it is to do it for people.
That part.
And so when I tapped into that, and you start to realize, like, man, this is super scalable, because you record it once, you sell it as many times as you can sell it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of like how that has progressed, because a lot of times people want to have that finished, super successful idea at the outset. And I always tell people, get started, get fancy later, put something out there, and then iterate, and you'll find that super successful product. Because a lot of times what you think is going to blow up isn't what actually is going to blow up. And so I had no idea that that specific product would be the product that would do it. I'm thinking, man, everybody online is talking about real estate. I need to talk about real estate. Everybody's online is talking about flipping homes and wholesaling. Like, that was the narrative. Not knowing that options trading was so unique and so kind of, it came from left field. Like, nobody even thought about it. And now everybody talks about it. And so I wouldn't have just like chosen that based on viewing the current landscape of what existed already and thought that would be the winner. But it was the winner. So from there, we created the options trading course. We paired that with the course we had created before, which was a stock market related course, created books. We've done a ton of stuff with that product. And so I think that if I were to give you key points out of that, it's like, use that degree and that knowledge you have to serve your community. Use that degree and the knowledge you have to create products. And then also put a bunch of stuff out there, because you never know. I'm telling you, people, you never know. You never know.
And I think one of the things that's awesome is just being able to be what they say, a jack of all trades. Being able to utilize your passion for helping people and expanding it. And I hope you guys are able to check in and lock in and realize it's like this is something that you're also able to do and exploring your passions and also having to be in intersection with law. Now, of course, one thing I also want to ask you about is I always ask you guys this story about how was it when you were officially licensed as an attorney? What was that experience like? How was that experience sharing it with your family? Because I'm always hear amazing stories.
Do you remember when Will Smith gave Carlton the Dictionary?
Yeah.
That's what it felt like. It's like, oh. I think it felt validating.
Yeah.
To walk around and have to tell people, like, yeah, I have a law degree, but I'm not licensed for so long, it gets kind of old. And I think that was kind of like what it felt like. It felt validating. It felt like I closed the loop on something,
Yeah.
because I had so many other things planned. Like, I was working on getting my MBA. I had to take a break on that to study for the bar. And who knows what I would have continued to pursue in terms of business, real estate, all that stuff. And I had to put it off hold because I still hadn't finished this goal, still hadn't closed that loop. And so in closing that loop, now I'm in position to start kind of looking at that LLM, looking at finishing that MBA, looking at whatever else might come from that. And I didn't have that luxury until I closed the loop on this. And then also started my own firm.
Wow. And I think that's the thing. It's just like literally, you guys, the challenges that you're going through are meant to grow you. Are meant to force you to pivot so you can be able to evolve into something greater. And oftentimes we need to have those challenges in order for us to evolve. One of the things I tell them, bros, I'd be like, man, how often do our phones update? Our phones update all the freaking time. But oftentimes we don't make shifts in our own lives until we face a challenge.
Yeah.
And for you guys out there going through challenges, just realize you're just going through an update right now. But one of the things that's beautiful now is you're not alone in doing this anymore. You have social media, you have resources and communities that are all here to be able to help you learn how to do that. Because I keep it a buck, bro. I felt like for me and both you, even though in two separate parts of the United States, we kind of had to figure it out by ourselves. We were going blind. But now it's like when you get there, now it's just like, okay, I want to give the game so you guys can get there
Yep.
too. Because I tell people all the time, I said, I tell people, I said, at this point, you don't have an excuse. You have resources, you have people who are here to help you. Now, when you struggle alone, it's only because you're choosing to be alone. Am I being too harsh with that, fam?
Nope. Nope. I think the harsh stuff is the stuff people need. But you're 100% right. I don't even think it's harsh. I think it's just real. So that's why when I was looking at your page, I was like, this is really good stuff. Like this is what people need because other people have it, man. Other people, they might not necessarily have an organization that is situated to create that, but they got a whole community of attorneys that they can tap into, ask questions to. They got judges in their community. I mean, we have that as well, but it's not as prevalent as it might be in some other communities.
Yeah, and I mean, now we can make our own opportunities. That's one of the things I really try to encourage people to do. Like, bro, I opened up the episode today talking about how valuable it is to be able to advocate for yourself. Because if you can't advocate for yourself, how can you advocate for a client? And so I know that you've been practicing in your practice of law. What's been one of your most memorable experiences in helping a client thus far in your career so far?
And um, I would just say that every time I help, like one of the reasons why I stay in PI, and one of the reasons why I stay in the firm that I work in is because I get a chance to work with people who look like me. And so I think that when you step in the room and they see somebody and they can resonate with them and they know that you care and they know that you really want to see them do well, like that is the thing that I love. And I've loved that since even when I was working as a clerk in this firm. A majority of our clients are African American. I had this recent case that we settled for a lady who um, was kind of in and out of homelessness. And it was just cool to be able to get her a good amount of money more than she expected and just kind of like see it be almost life changing for her. And so those are the experiences that I enjoy when you end a depot and this little old lady comes up and gives you a hug, or you settle a case and the lady comes in and she gives you a hug. Like for me, I want to kind of create like that family atmosphere. Like it's not just business. It's not just business.
It's not
It's lives.
right.
It's lives that we're impacting. It's people who were injured. The injury impacted their life. And now we're able to give you compensation that's going to allow you to live a more fulfilling, rewarding life. Like that's why I enjoy this area in the consumer-facing area of law, because it's the lives that are changing. Just like in entrepreneurship, like I have so many reviews on my page. I run into so many people on the streets wherever I'm at, and it's always just like, man, like there's a guy down the street from here. I'm riding the scooter down the street, and he was like, hey man, like I two daughters out there. Like that's what it's about to me. There's a book I read called The Jewish Phenomenon, and it says like in other cultures they feel like they're all the MLK. They're all the person that's supposed to create that path for another person. And so for me, it's not so much the things that I can obtain. It's more so like the change that I can make, the things that I can improve for overall African American society. That's what I'm aiming at.
I love that. I love that. When you said that sense about community, it made me think about one of my old students. He told me he's a Pacific Islander. He told me the word ma'at, which means community, which means family. He said everybody is family, everybody is community, and we work together to build each other up. And it really is like a philosophy that I try to live by as well. And I think one of the things that I want you guys to be able to realize, if you find yourself getting overwhelmed about the LSAT or the bar, or waiting to hear back from law schools, remember who you're doing this for. Remember who it's for. Remember that at the end of the day, you're doing this for a reason to be able to have an impact on somebody else's life, not just yours.
Yeah.
But fam, I want to thank you so much for coming on our show. You are goals for me personally because I'm definitely trying to follow your roadmap, and I hope you guys out there listening make sure go ahead and give them where they can follow you and where they can find all the amazing things that you're doing. Because man, I'm trying to build, and I want you to be able to share so they can also learn how to build too.
Yeah. So my main Instagram page is c.o.esq. The business Instagram page is at TODD.capital. And then the law firm page, which are still in the infancy stages, still bare bones, ground level, but it's going to be big. I'm telling you, it's going to be big, is at ontario.injury. Trying to just build and create a great life, create a community, add value to the community in any way possible, and just continue to set the bar on whatever that looks like. So I appreciate you. I didn't even know you was really checking in like that, but that's cool to hear, man.
Bro, man, when I was on that bar struggle bus, man, I was looking for motivations and I was looking for ways to be able to continue to fight forward. And you definitely gave me that source of motivation. And for you guys out there, make sure you go follow him on his Instagram accounts. Yo, not only is he going to educate you and inform you, but he also going to make you laugh with some of them reels he be popping up on there too. With the balloon pop, he having me laughing for real. But overall, you guys, I want you guys to realize that this journey is hard, but you've been hard before.
Yeah.
You can't do it. He's done it. I've done it. And the thing about it is you now have a community of people. He just gave you his Instagram handle of people to be able to reach out to who want to see you win. I want you to win. He wants you to win. His son wants you to win. But it's only going to work if you want to win too. And so we're praying for you. We're rooting for you. And make sure see you guys same time, Wednesday, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. Hopefully my Pacers will be up. But thanks, man. I really appreciate you for joining the show.
All right, man. Thanks for having me, brother.